Have you ever been controlled by a woman like that? You've been so into her that she had control over you in that manner?
Yeah, I've been in both kinds of relationships. I've been in where I was the dominant party, and I've been in relationships where she was the dominant party.
And what happened to you that you allowed yourself to get into that relationship with a woman?
Well,
where
just
she
because
can
a
control you like
woman
that?
is in a more dominant position doesn't necessarily make the relationship negative, right?
I wouldn't. Yes, it
I mean,
does.
you
No,
maybe for you,
absolutely
maybe
make
for
it
you
weak.
and your
Any
development.
man that's in a dominating relationship with a woman is weak.
I mean,
And
that's
it's ridiculous.
But then, okay, but you're
And you should
so if you
never
take that
accept
standard.
Yes, guys, welcome to Culture War. In this video, Jesse teaches schools a male dating coach. He's an atheist. He has a lot of ideas and he says some really nice things actually. But Jesse actually schooled him on how a normal relationship should be between a man and a woman. Everybody enjoyed this. If you've not subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to get more videos like this. So without further ado, as usual, let's dive in.
Welcome to the Fallen State. I'm Jesse Lee Peterson. Today I'm talking with an expert on modern men. I have with me Jared Z, author of The Methodology of the Modern Male, dating coach, and radio host. Jared, tell them your last name.
Zawistowski.
Are you Russian?
It's Polish. It's phonetical. If you sound it out, you could pronounce it, but that's why I go by Jared time.
That's amazing.
Yeah, why? Just being Polish. By virtue of being Polish, you are amazing. Thank you. I'll take that.
You're an atheist, is that right?
That is true, yes.
And what does it mean to be an atheist to you?
Ooh, well, what it means to be an atheist to me is that I have studied the Bible extensively and several other religions, and I have found that the burden of proof is not great enough. The burden of proof is on religion, and it doesn't really hold up.
Amazing. So you don't believe that there is a God at all?
No, I don't.
I guess I should assume you don't believe there's a devil either, right? An evil spirit.
Neither does your religion, really. Christianity, the word for Satan means adversary. It doesn't mean, Lucifer. They call, but a lot of the words that people use have been mistranslated. So you could reason that even anybody who criticizes religion is technically a Satan or a devil, because they're an adversary to it, right?
How did you become that way, to believe that there's no God?
I grew up very Christian. I studied to be an evangelist.
Right.
I almost went to seminary school, and
You were an ordained minister at one time.
Yeah.
Are you still an ordained minister?
Technically, yes, but like the online version of that, it was really a joke because I became ordained well after I was already an atheist.
Oh, okay.
I just kind of.
So you just did it for the fun of it?
Yeah, I was staging a prank for a friend that I didn't end up going through with, but that was the initial reason. Is I was just like, I can't believe it's that easy that for $50 online I can tell people that I'm an ordained minister.
What's your impression of this organization called, is it MGTOW?
Men going their own way, or MGTOW, yeah.
Yeah, MGTOW. These men, from what I've been told, because I've been trying to get them on the show, but they won't come on. I'm surprised by that. Since I run a men's organization, I was surprised when my producer, she contacted them and they cursed her out. It was like, I'm never coming to you, leave me alone, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean...
Are you surprised by that?
In the actual definition of their movement, you have the answer there. It's men going their own way. They're basically saying screw everyone, and they're jumping ship.
What do you think of that?
So what MGTOW is it is the response to what feminism has become. And
Right.
Feminism was very, very good for a long time, and women's equality is a necessary component in our functional society. It has since moved on to something that is more about the hatred of men. And women have been, now that women have equality, women are kind of consistently manipulating men and sort of cutting them at the knees.
Right.
So men aren't allowed to be men anymore, and women are the women's manipulation is that men will almost put up with anything in order to get a girl, right? If a man's desire to procreate, to have sex with a woman, will it'll basically reroute his brain to where he'll put up with her being a garbage human. He'll put up with her, I mean, it doesn't matter. He'll put up with massive amounts of abuse. He'll put up with anything. He'll put up with, I have to work for my entire life like a slave and do everything that you want and so that I can get a little bit of sex from you maybe once a month, and then start a family with you and have this whole thing riding on his shoulders so that he can, you know, basically have sex with her for a few years until she feels secure enough, or until the marriage, you know, has passed that mark where now she would get 50% of his assets, and then she stops having sex with him. So men have basically been corralled into this almost enslavement. A lot of men feel that way. Don't get me wrong, that's one very narrow point.
Right.
Because the reality of dating is that it's very broad, and that there are great relationships with great people, and they're not doing that to each other.
Right.
But for the people that that's happened to, and there are a lot of them, they created MGTOW's response to that.
And so what's wrong with those men that they overreacted in such a manner? What caused them to be so weak and subject to women that women can do that to them?
It's a very negative place to be a man. Masculinity is something that's constantly analyzed and scrutinized and criticized and put down, and you know.
But why don't men fight back though? A real man will fight back. Just because someone accused you of something, well, you don't have to give in to that. You stand up and fight back.
So MGTOW and men's rights actually do. They stand up and they fight against that. And what women do.
But not if they're running away saying we never gonna have a family.
MGTOW is like peace out, right? But before MGTOW, what you had MRA, which was the men's rights activists or men's rights movement, and when they stood up and they fought back, women created women feminists. Not all women, obviously. Most women don't even want part of this.
Anyway. They hate men.
Some women do, but most women don't.
The feminists do.
Yeah.
That's why they're feminists.
So they stood up, and what the feminists did is they created you know, propaganda structures and moral narratives to basically label and demonize these men. So if a man stood up to fight back or simply to stand up for himself, they would immediately say, you know, you're a misogynist, right? So they'll label you immediately. You're a misogynist, you're a sexist, and you're trying to keep women down. And he's going, no, I just want my rights too. And they're going, oh, well, you know, men have subjected women to all of this stuff, and then they bring up the past. And, you know, what argument wouldn't be complete without a woman bringing up the past, right? Some stuff that you did, or maybe she never experienced.
50 years ago, she still remembers.
She still remembers. So, you know, what we're seeing here is basically a knockdown, drag-out fight between men and women. It's almost it almost models a fight between a man and a woman.
Yeah, sure does.
Just like a marriage.
Yeah.
And you're seeing lulls in that where the man goes, okay, honey, you're right, just do whatever, you know, it doesn't matter. And he's totally in the right. But he's cowering to her because he doesn't want to deal with it, and she's being, you know, completely emotional. And then she comes back, you know, a few weeks later and is like, I'm sorry, I was being crazy. And he's like, oh, it's okay, honey. And then, you know, that process kind of constantly repeats. And then they're fighting over the kids. Well, we should raise them like this. Well, maybe we shouldn't raise them like that, okay? Maybe we should do it a different way. Maybe you should be less domineering. And he's like, maybe you should stop being so, you know. So it's just funny that, like, all of this is even happening, right? It's almost like the inevitable conclusion of this.
But to me, it's a perfect condition for weak men to become real men. Because you know how in those tough moments when life just seemed tough, it's happening to you so that you can check out your weakness and take advantage of that moment and overcome.
I disagree. I think it's
not
harder.
A bad thing. What?
I think it's harder now for men to become real men
than
it
not.
ever was in history.
Look at the Great White Hope.
What was that?
You know who the Great White Hope is, right?
The Great White. Do I know who that is? Like Larry Bird?
President Trump.
Oh.
Look at how those women go after him, and they went after him during the primary. He just became stronger and stronger and stronger, and he just knocked them out like bowling balls.
Yeah, but I mean,
he didn't cower down and say, I'm just gonna not have anything to do with women. I'm gonna go MGTOW. He became stronger from it.
So let's.
And now the Wicked Witch of the West, Maxine Waters, is about to jump off the cliff. Pocahontas is losing her mind. The women who hate men are having that's the case.
I do agree that some people are are standing up right now, but I don't think that it's easier now to be a man than it was in, say, the 40s or that it was to be in the 1900s. I mean, don't get me wrong, like life is relative, so life is easier now for people, but like, you know, men were basically socialized into being a male from the time they were children. They didn't even have to think about it.
Right.
And they were constantly pushed out there into the world, and they were tested against things. Men were socialized into men. I mean, by the time they were 15, 16 years old, they were grown men. They were, you know, they were socialized. So I think that system was technically a ton easier than giving men all the choices that they have to make today. The idea that a girl can stand up and say, you know what, that person hit on me and they did it the wrong way and I just didn't like it and it was really uncomfortable for me. The fact that a woman can say that and it's taken so seriously that it destroys that person's life is absolutely unacceptable in society.
Have you ever been controlled by a woman like that? You've been so into her that she had control over you in that manner?
Yeah, I've been in both kinds of relationships. I've been in where I was the dominant party, and I've been in relationships where she was the dominant party.
And what happened to you that you allowed yourself to get into that relationship with a woman?
Well,
where
just
she
because
can
a
control you like
woman
that?
is in a more dominant position doesn't necessarily make the relationship negative, right?
I wouldn't. Yes, it
I
does.
mean, you
No,
maybe for you,
absolutely
maybe
make
for
it weak.
you and your development.
Any man that's in a dominating relationship with a woman is weak.
I mean,
And
that's
it's ridiculous.
But you're
And you
so
should
if you
never
take that
accept
standard
that.
to say that a relationship that is dominated by a man, therefore the woman is weak, right? And that's
But
why
she is
feminists
the
are
weakest
so
vessel.
angry right now, is that men refuse and have historically refused to relay an equality to what men do in the world and what women do in the world, and they won't acknowledge that being a mother is just as good as being a working man out in the world.
Who won't acknowledge that?
Men have historically.
Most men acknowledge that being a wife,
but
a
you
mother,
kind of just did it, right?
raising children.
You said that not being the party that's got in the relationship is therefore weak inherently.
Right.
So what you're doing is you're actually setting yourself up to get a ton of backlash from the feminist community because if they're put in that position, then they're treated as though they are weak.
But when I think of a man being dominated by a woman, that's pure weakness.
There's a huge difference.
Let me tell you what I'm talking about.
Domination.
I'm talking about a man who loves what's right. He does what's right. He is right. And then I'm married to a woman who loves what's right, does what's right, and she is right, and she respects that order. But let me ask this: do you ever plan to marry?
You know what? I grew up very, very interested in the storybook romance, and I love that. And when I wrote my book, I wrote it very, lovingly towards women, and I love that Disney storybook fairy tale kind of stuff. And you know, it's like a human being, right? Like you could look at a human being and think like, oh, this is wonderful. But then you start studying microbiology and you see like just how much it could be negative, it could be positive, but you see that this isn't exactly what it seems to be. So when it comes to marriage, it's like, I want to go into marriage. I would love to marry a girl, find your soulmate, all of that stuff. But the reality is that when you start studying that stuff, you realize that the hit rate is so low and that it takes so much work and that there's so much craziness in that, that literally people had to be legally bound and the threat of possible starvation had to be there for people to stay together.
So you're not going to get married?
I would love to. I don't think it would be a traditional marriage.
Yeah.
I think that it would be more of a commitment.
Kind of living in sin. Do you want children?
Yeah and no. I would be okay with either, I think.
Do you love your earthly father?
You
love your daddy? Yeah, the one that made you. You love him?
No.
You don't love your father?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
And why not?
Well, there are a bunch of reasons I'm not going to get into on public television, but there was, I had a really rough childhood. The reason that feminism was created and all of these concessions are created for women was the exact household that I grew up in. An abusive father and a mother who had to rely completely and solely on the system to get her 2 kids out of there, and for our safety in our lives. And we grew up on food stamps and Section 8, Social Security, all that stuff.
Right. And so you don't love your father, you love your mother?
Yes, I love her immensely, yes.
Amazing. You have a brother or sister?
I have a brother and a sister.
Oh, yeah? And so what is it like not loving your father? What does that feel like?
Like nothing. Like you don't really, like I don't think about it. Like I don't think about the idea that like I don't.
You hate him?
No.
You just don't love him?
Yeah. To me, it's
you
like.
You resent him?
It doesn't come up in my life whatsoever. I don't wake up thinking about it. It never comes up. It's just when somebody brings it up, but I never think like, oh my God, I don't have a dad. It's so weird. Like it doesn't.
So you never think about, wow, I wish I had a relationship with my father. It would have been really nice. It would be nice to know my father, be with him.
I would have obviously preferred that, but if I didn't have, if I had had a relationship with my father, I might have ended up kind of being and thinking and doing, I would have been an exact clone of kind of his ideologies and all this stuff. Because of the fact that there were deficits in my life with religion and God and also my father, I had to systematically figure out who I wanted to be on this subject.
But let me ask, do you think like a man or like a woman?
I would say that I think that most people have the ability to kind of do both. It depends on which one you feed.
Do you do?
I oscillate back and forth. I feel like I understand women enough and can think and feel and emotionally empathize like women do.
So sometimes you think and feel like a woman?
Yeah, and sometimes I think and feel like a man.
What does a man feel like?
Men are very, it's very forceful. You kind of throw away what doesn't work.
That's not a man's feeling. Men don't have feelings. There's no such thing as man feeling. It's only woman. You either feel like a woman or you feel like, because men are just logical, they see what's right, they do the right thing, and it's not based on anything that they feel at all. Any man that feels like a woman is a woman.
So I'm having.
They have their mother's ID.
So what you're saying is, okay, there's so many points in that are wrong, but what you're saying is that men don't feel. No, they do feel. Men don't operate or make decisions based out of emotion.
But the
right?
men who feel
and
are
sometimes
women.
they do make decisions based out of emotion. Women will make their emotion is sadness or or empathy or whatever. Men's general go-to emotion is rage and anger.
But then,
so men do make decisions.
I know, but what
out
you
of
don't
emotion.
realize, those emotions are the emotions of their mothers, because men who have been raised by their mothers and close to their mothers resent their mothers, and you become like what you resent. You take on her identity, and so that's why you can think like a woman, you can feel like a woman, because you become like whomever you're angry at.
You can use that as a relative example for any parental structure.
And then you got
men or women.
That's why men are MGTOW. It's a MGTOW, and other men are caught up with these women because they resent their mothers, and they need that woman's love, thinking that it's going to make them free, but it only destroys them because women see it as a weakness. And the way out is that they have to forgive their mothers for what the mothers have done, so they can overcome her nature and take on their natural nature, which is based on logic and truth and love, and not based on all these emotions.
Love is an emotion, so how do men feel?
What is a man?
What is a man? Or we're talking about what is a biological male?
No, what is a man?
A man is what society has deemed. A man
What's
is.
your definition of a man?
This is the definition of a man. A man is a male who has grown up and has achieved a society's cultural definitions of what it should be.
That's how you see it too?
That's how everyone sees it, regardless
of what
they actually think.
Do you personally see it that way?
Yes, yes.
You do. Let me ask, Owen, what is love?
Well, love technically is oxytocin, which is a chemical compound in your brain that you feel when you bond to something. This has been scientifically proven. So that's what love is.
That's amazing, Jerry.
Yeah. Yes.
Love is simply not hating.
Okay. So you're using the absence of light is darkness, and darkness is the absence of light argument on that.
No, I'm not. I'm just using love is not hating.